Hey everybody, it's me, Ashley. It's been a while since I've done a solo episode, so I am super excited to be here right now. I have been hearing so much, honestly, mostly from myself, that creating content and coming up with ideas for content and episodes should be easy for me because I just need to talk about how I feel. But here's the truth. I don't always understand the way that I feel. And I feel like this is probably a common thing for a lot of us. And I think that it's important to remember that two things can be true at once because it's true. You can have two opposing opinions, two opposing feelings, two opposing facts, and they can both be true at once. And I think that sometimes we forget that, but it's really important to remember because that's where a lot of these mixed feelings come from. It's not from, it can create confusion, but it's more just from two things being true at once. I am currently in Australia. I've been here for, I think a little over 2 weeks. I flew into Sydney, and when I was in Sydney, I was just having a miraculous time. I was waking up every day, so excited for the day, practically jumping out of bed. I was waking up at like 4:30 a.m. and forcing myself to go back to sleep. I'd wake up at 6 a.m. and be like, okay, it's early enough. Let's get up. Let's do this. Excited for the day. I felt so good, had so much energy. I was working out. I was cooking a ton. And yeah, I was just doing so great. So then I came more up north. I'm in this pretty small town right now, and I originally came here because I'm on a working holiday visa, and part of the requirements if you want to apply for a second year is you have to do 88 days of work in or just regional work. So this is considered a regional area, so I can work in hospitality and tourism in this town, and it counts for that. So that's why I decided to come here. But I don't know, it's just been kind of hard. I totally crashed out the other day, but it's been interesting because I feel just kind of like sad and stressed and lonely. I'm just like foggy. Like I've just been having a rough time. My skin is breaking out. It's just like I feel like I'm falling apart for some reason. But at the same time, I still have these moments where I am just like, wow, I can't believe I'm here right now. This is so amazing, and I'm so incredibly grateful to be here. For example, last week I went scuba diving at the Great Barrier Reef. Like, how cool is that? I went scuba diving at the Great Barrier Reef, and that's something I, as a kid, always thought was amazing. But I never really imagined that I would do it, but I can do it, and I did it. So that was really cool, and I just was leaving the grocery store, and I saw a booth for a tour company, and they were selling tours, so I was like, I'll go check out, see what they have, and one of them was to scuba dive at the Great Barrier Reef. So I was like, you know what? Why not? This sounds awesome. So I booked it for the next day. I am a certified scuba diver, but I got certified about 6 years ago, I think, and have only been scuba diving 2 times since then. But I was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go for it. So I booked the tickets. I went the next day. There was hardly any thought or fear going into this, honestly. I just booked the ticket. I showed up. I get on the boat. I went alone. I didn't try and find anyone else to go with me. I get on the boat. It's just me and 2 other guys who are the certified divers. So it's me and these 2 guys from Adelaide who are friends. So I'm on the boat. I'm having a great time. I'm chatting with these 2 guys I just met who I'm about to go scuba diving with. I'm sitting there. I'm putting on all of my scuba gear, and I am like, holy shit. This is so cool. I just had this moment, like, Ashley, you created this. Like, who are you? What is your life? And I just was amazed and proud of myself, and I was so grateful. Just so much gratitude in this moment. I had an amazing day. I finished it. When you like do something really active in the day, maybe you go surfing or scuba diving or whatever, and then the rest of the day is just so good. You're all sunny and you take a shower and then you relax, and it's just so good. So I felt that way, but I also just felt at the same time just kind of like meh, like bad. I don't really want to be here right now. Just intensely grateful, but just that something isn't quite right at the same time. I'm also just feeling a little bit stressed. I feel like I have so much to do, and no matter how much I do, there's never less to do. A big reason why I came here was to make and save money. Well, I am able to save a little bit of money, but not as fast as I would have hoped, so that's making me feel like I can't get out of here as soon as I was hoping to, and then just feeling a little bit stressed about money in general, not sure what to do, if I should leave, if I should stay, and that makes me feel a little bit stuck. And if you know me, you know that I absolutely hate feeling stuck, but it's just hard where I'm like here, so I have a little bit of financial stability being here, but I'm not really happy here, and I'm not able to save as much as I had hoped, and all these factors just making me feel a little bit stuck. So I've been struggling with that a little bit, but then it makes me wonder, when we feel stuck, are we actually stuck? Or is it an illusion created by indecisiveness or lack of making decisions? Because the truth is that I could leave here tomorrow. I could leave here today. I could go back to my hostel, pack up my things, get on a shuttle, and get out of here. But because I've been indecisive, that's what makes me feel stuck. Because I haven't made that decision to leave, I haven't consciously made the decision to stay. I'm just kind of in this limbo. I've been indecisive, and that is what really is making me feel stuck, because I have the choice. I can make the choice to do what I want to do, but I know this is easier said than done, and I want to clarify that I understand that there are some situations your choices are more limited. You don't have the option to just leave. I also understand that when you have more commitments, like children, these decisions need to be more calculated because there's more at risk. There's more to think about. Right now, I am in a position where I don't have a lot of commitments. I'm pretty free right now, and so I have the option to make these decisions. But even in the circumstances where it needs to be more calculated, you still have choices. You're never out of options. You can make a choice. So that being said, I'm gonna say this, and then I'm gonna take my own advice. I know it's easier said than done, but I truly do believe this, and I've experienced it so much in my life. The only times in my life where I have genuinely struggled financially have been times in my life where I'm making decisions and I'm living in a way that doesn't feel aligned or true to myself. I was making decisions that didn't feel good. I was pretending to be someone I wasn't. Like, I was making a lot of decisions to please other people. I was worried about what people think of me. I was scared of making hard decisions. You name it. Those are the times when I have really struggled financially. When I am making decisions that feel aligned with myself, when my thoughts, my words, and my actions all are in alignment, that is when I feel the best. And that is when I feel like the money just flows in to support the decisions that I'm making with good intent. That is when I feel like the universe is just providing for me. Because I think that we can have all of these things that we want, right? But it's our responsibility to discover what those things are. It's our responsibility to tune in, and it's our responsibility to make those decisions for ourselves. Once you are tuned in, once you are doing your best to get into alignment, I think that's when the universe pops in and starts providing you with things, giving you little gifts, rewards here and there, helping guide you. And maybe it doesn't always work that way, but I think that it often does. Maybe it sounds crazy to you, but I really do believe that. And with that said, welcome to Wandering Wild. I am Ashley Bradshaw, the host and creator. I feel like I've done an introduction episode for the podcast, but since it's evolved so much, and I don't think I've ever done an introduction of myself or told you my own story. So that's what I want to share with you today. My own story and the ways I have grown specifically through travel, but just life experiences in general. I'm really excited to talk to you about this. I also want to say, if you're here right now, I am really, really, really happy that you are. If you wouldn't mind just following me, leaving me a review, maybe leaving a comment. You can also find me on Instagram at the Wandering Wild Podcast. It means so much to me right now. Like, it really is a big deal. Every single follow, every single comment, every single review feels so good and really makes me happy, and is just so important to me right now. So if you're listening to this and you want to go do that right now, that would be lovely. I would really appreciate it. I am a traveler through and through. It will always be something that is part of my life and part of me. But this isn't something that I've always realized, and something I didn't discover for a really long time. I actually never traveled very much until I was 18. I moved to Puerto Rico for a year at 11 years old, and then I moved back again when I was 15, and that's where my home base has been till like 8 months ago when I was traveling full time. And now, of course, I'm living in Australia, but my parents are still there. Most of my brothers are still there. But that was the kind of only travel I've done, which I do think played a part in my love for it. But I actually used to not want to travel. I was sick a lot. And I eventually found out that I'm allergic to gluten, so luckily we got that figured out. But I hated going on vacation with my family because I was just sick and tired all the time, and it was just so much work and so tiring for me. So I didn't like travel because it wasn't fun. And luckily, we got that figured out. When I was a kid, I did always want to go to Paris. That was my dream, was to go to Paris. That's about as far as my want for travel extended. I don't know why Paris. I used to be really into fashion design when I was younger. That's what I was going to do. I was going to go to school for it. And I think Paris has a lot of that, and I just thought it seemed very glamorous. And so yeah, that was top of my bucket list. It was my dream. Everything was Eiffel Tower themed in my room. I didn't really know anything about Paris, but in middle school, I started to learn more and more about it. So I kind of had this whole bucket list of things I wanted to do there. I was obsessed with the French language. I feel like I don't speak it anymore, but at the time I picked it up really quickly. But then when I was in Puerto Rico, I ended up getting a job with my amazing friend Leela, who has also been an incredible mentor for me. If you're listening to this, you know I love you, but just to tell you again, I love and appreciate you so much. Leela has traveled lots in her life. And I had never really came across like a true traveler, not like going on vacations, going to resorts. Leela was the first traveler I had ever met. And you might have experienced this when someone is really passionate about something. I think for me, maybe because I'm passionate about travel, specifically travel, and they tell you their stories, it just has this amazing feeling around it. And I feel like you can feel the energy and excitement just oozing off of them from sharing these amazing experiences with you. So I would sit in the studio with Leela and she would tell me her stories, and that made a huge impact on me. And that is kind of where I was like, I want to do what she did. I want to have the kinds of experiences that she had. And she was just so supportive in it. And that is a huge part of what launched this desire for me. So when I turned 18, I was like, okay, this is my chance. This is when I'm going to go travel. I didn't want to go alone. I was not going to be a solo traveler. I tried planning trips with friends and it was just so stressful. It kept falling through. No one could commit. No one could agree on plans. And so it just came to the point where I was like, I can't keep waiting for other people. I'm going to need to do this on my own. But I didn't know how to start. I didn't know what to do. I was so overwhelmed. Again, it was kind of that lack of making decisions. So nothing was really happening because I couldn't decide where to go. I couldn't decide how to do it. I couldn't decide what to do. I was so overwhelmed and so confused about how to even travel. So what I ended up doing is I was on TikTok and I found a group trip. I applied for the group trip and unfortunately they were full. But I think about a week or two before the trip, she reached out to me and she had a space open up. So I took the space and I went to Puerto Escondido, Mexico, and it was absolutely incredible, life-changing trip. That was when the big switch flipped for me and traveling went to something I wanted to do but kind of scary to something that I just became so passionate about. So I loved it so much, I actually didn't want to go home. I ended up having to go home because there was a hurricane about to hit Mexico, and I didn't have to, but I decided to go home. But then my life at home became work and save, work and save, work and save so that I could go on my next trip. My limit was $3,000. Once I had $3,000, I was like, you know what? That's enough. Here I go. And I would leave for about 3 months. So I had 2 big trips like that. My first one, I went to Bacalar, Mexico with a friend. We did a work exchange there. And then I went to Guatemala. And then I went to Utah for a family reunion. And then I went to San Francisco to visit one of my friends. Incredible trip. In Guatemala, I did a work exchange at a place called Free Cerveza. I'm going to recommend that to you if you want to try one because I've recommended it to other people and everyone has had amazing experiences. So just gonna throw that out there. And then after this trip, I did another one back to Mexico because I love Mexico. I went back to Puerto Escondido for my birthday, and then I went to Panama and Costa Rica. Oh, this trip was so good also. And then I went back home to work and save. I went to Norway with my aunt for 2 weeks, and that again was just incredible, but it did take all of my money. So I went back home to work again. I've also done some seasonal work within the States. I've done work in North Carolina. I taught surf lessons for a summer in Florida. And I've also lived in Virginia for a little while. So a little bit of traveling in the States. I also went back to Utah for about 2 months. I did a summer in Hawaii. So a lot of just great travel experiences. But after Norway, I moved to the Outer Banks in North Carolina. This was a really hard time in my life. I had started taking birth control, which I want to talk more about in another episode, but I won't get into it now. But basically, it made me so depressed and sick. I was not doing well. I didn't have excitement for life. I was so tired. And I did end up switching to another one that worked a little bit better for me, but I just still kind of always felt like something was off. I also had a job that was fine, but it was just a really toxic environment. The managers were incredibly bad. They were not supportive at all. They were always pinning their employees against each other. It was just a really not good experience. During this time, I also started dating a boy who was wonderful at the time. I won't get too much into it, but this boy went to school in the States. I tried moving to where he was living, but I just really didn't like it. I really didn't like it. And so I was living at home in Puerto Rico. I was working, and then I was spending all of my money to go see this man. And it was really hard because I wasn't able to travel. He also wasn't big into having a girlfriend who was out there solo traveling. So that was really limiting to me. And again, I was just living a life that wasn't true to myself, that I didn't feel good in. I was lying to myself about who I was because this is who I am. I have been solo traveling for months. I just moved to Australia solo because I felt like moving to Australia. I'm sitting in a park recording my podcast episode. I am a free spirit, traveler, wanderer, wild, and I wasn't able to be that in this situation. And so I just was having a really hard time and was kind of feeling stuck in this, I guess. During this time, I didn't really realize it in the moment, but I think I had given so much of myself away to try and fit in and to try and make it work, which is just a recipe for disaster, right? This relationship eventually ended, not under great circumstances, but I'm honestly so okay with that because I think that I never would have just ended this relationship just because I needed something different or just because I felt like it wasn't what I needed. It took something bad happening for me to finally be like, okay, you know what? This needs to end. So I made the decision to end that. I sat in my field and the breeze was blowing and I sat with my eyes closed, taking deep breaths because I was just an absolute wreck. And I just heard this voice in my head and felt this feeling that was like, Ashley, you know what you need to do. If you're honest with yourself, you knew that this was going to need to happen. You can do this. And so I did it. And that was the first time in probably 2 years that I had decided to listen to my intuition. And I feel like because of that moment that I made that decision, I opened the door to so many possibilities, to so many experiences, and also opened the door for me to reconnect with myself and to connect with my intuition. I feel almost as if my intuition was like, oh, okay, Ashley's listening to us now, let's work with her. And so I feel like that kind of launched me into, after of course, I was devastated. I was having a hard time, but it really opened up this door for me to reconnect with myself, to find more love for myself, and to travel again. So after that happened, I kind of felt like, I don't regret anything. I don't want to say it was a waste because I don't feel like it was. It was a phase of my life that needed to happen, but I was kind of in the moment feeling like I should have been traveling for these 2 years because now I'm 22 and I'm so old and I need to go find a job and get in an apartment and start a life and blah, 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 blah. All of these lies that I'm telling myself about how I should live my life. And it just wasn't a good fit. I was planning all of this and I'm like looking into apartments and I'm looking into jobs and I'm trying to decide where in the United States I want to live, and nothing felt right. I didn't feel sure about what I wanted. I didn't trust myself. And I just thought, you know what? When I travel, that's when I feel confident in myself. When I travel, everything feels right. When I travel, I feel sure about what I want. When I travel, I trust myself. So I need to go and travel again. And it was almost this thing of like, I'm just going to go for a couple of months, get it out of my system, figure things out, and then I'll decide what I want to do. Well, now I understand that this isn't something that's getting out of my system. It's actually something that is just part of me. So it's something I want to do forever, for the rest of my life. And it makes me so incredibly happy. But I decided to go. I was going to start in Paris. And that's where I always dreamed of going as a kid. So I was excited about this, but I was really scared, you guys, like so terrified. When my mom dropped me off at the airport, I was shaking, crying, full-on panic attack, not doing well. I thought that when I got to Paris, it would go away, but it didn't. This version of myself that I usually find when I travel, where I am happy, energetic, sunny, I am fun, laughing, giggling all the time, super social. I call this my sunshine. This came from when I was in Guatemala. People would call me Sunshine Girl because I was just so ridiculously happy there all the time, just insanely happy. And so I started calling this version of myself my sunshine. And so I set off to find my sunshine again. Well, I'm in Paris. I ended up seeing a childhood friend there, which I think was really good for me. But I went to Paris. I went to Italy. I saw my best friend in London, which was amazing. Back to Italy. All of this was amazing. But again, it was amazing and I was grateful for it, but I was not having a good time. I was so anxious. I was getting sick all the time. My immune system was so bad. I was eating gluten in Italy, which some people who are allergic to gluten are fine with that. My symptoms weren't as awful as they usually are. I was still just like sick, and it's impossible. It's nearly impossible to avoid it there. Like, I would walk forever trying to find a place that offered anything gluten-free. I could never find it. So it was just, I was eating gluten. I didn't feel good. I wasn't social. I spent most of this time alone reflecting, which was important, but also just like too scared to talk to people, too scared to explore. I was scared and anxious, and I just felt so small. But then I get to Rome, and in Rome, I was reminded one of the reasons that I loved to travel so much in the past, and that's people. My best experiences traveling, my favorite memories have always involved other people. So when I was in Rome, I met a great group of people, and it was just a good reset and reminder for me. After Rome, I went to Portugal where I did a work exchange, and I became so close with the other volunteers. This was a really good phase for me. I feel like I had kind of started to break away the ice. Like, I still hadn't quite figured it out. I still wasn't doing great, but I was starting to get there. After Portugal, I went to Spain for a little bit, but then I went to Thailand. And oh my gosh, the feeling I felt getting off the plane in Thailand was so good. It was so humid. I feel like my body was just drinking in the air, selling coconuts everywhere. So I just felt hydrated and good, and the weather was good. And I spent most of these days alone, but I think that was a really good thing for me, actually. After this, I went to Indonesia. I spent about a week in Ubud, Bali. Literally, I got my own room kind of like away from the main road. So it was just super jungle. Like, I felt like I was living in a forest, and I loved it so much. I didn't talk to anybody pretty much except for my hosts because I was doing a homestay, and I feel like this was really good for me. I was watching the sunrise every morning. I was watching the sunset every night. I was journaling every day. It was just this huge phase of reflection because I think so much growth had happened in Europe, but in the moment I couldn't really realize it. So this was kind of a phase for me to really dive in and understand what was going on emotionally and what I had just experienced. After that, I went to volunteer in the Gili Islands. This is where I started teaching yoga. And actually, I started my podcast in Portugal, and I finished my yoga training in Portugal. So those were two really big steps for me. And then I started actually teaching in Indonesia, which just opened this huge door to me. It helped me understand myself so much more. I ended up loving it. I didn't think I was going to love it. I really only decided to take the job because I felt like it was so out of my comfort zone that maybe it was a good thing for me to do. But I ended up really loving it. I had the best experience, made the best friends. My whole experience in Southeast Asia was just incredible. I was in Indonesia, then I went back to Thailand, went to the Philippines, back to Thailand, to Japan. Oh, what an amazing experience. Like, the growth that happened from the time I landed in Indonesia to the time I left Japan was insane. Like, absolutely amazing, incredible, and just insane. The girl I was in Portugal is not the same girl that I am today sitting in front of this camera. I mean, I am the same girl. Like, I love all of those versions of me, but it's just so different. The girl I was during those 2 years of no travel, I think about her and I'm like, I barely recognize her. I am so different than I was now. All those people in that phase of my life, I feel like barely even know me because I'm not that anymore. I'm here. This is who I am in this moment, at least, right? Through teaching yoga, I think I learned to stop being afraid of myself and what I believe in. Because I believe in, for example, manifestation. Not everyone believes in manifestation. That's okay. But I see that the life I'm living now is almost to a T, exactly what I wrote in my journal when I was 17, you know? So I really believe in these kinds of things. I think because of my background with religion, I did grow up Mormon. You can hear more about that in my last episode, but I can't fully believe in anything. I feel like I don't have super strong beliefs, but I do really connect to and resonate with a lot of these spiritual beliefs. And I used to be super scared of that because I thought people were going to think that I'm crazy or a witch or whatever. But I really believe in this stuff, and I think through that I started to learn to own that and own those things and to stop being so afraid of it and to stop being so afraid of myself. In these last 8 months of traveling, I have grown and learned so much. And one of the biggest things is realizing that your sunshine, the fun, excited, energetic, funny, social, happy version of you is so important. But it's not the only important piece of you. There is another layer to this. There's a version of you who needs to feel emotions, whether those are happiness, sadness, anger, these deeper emotions. It's important to be connected to these things, and this is also a really important part of you. And you don't need to always be outwardly social. You don't always need to be dancing, laughing, energetic, running around, having fun. Sometimes it's important to reflect, especially when you're traveling and there's so much going on. You're having this insane amount of growth in such a short period of time. You're constantly experiencing new things, meeting new people. There's so much going on in the brain, and it's really important to take time to reflect and understand how you feel, even if it's difficult. To journal, to meditate, all of these things feel difficult things. I actually got a tattoo on my foot in Thailand. My amazing friend did it for me with bamboo, which is the traditional way to do it in Thailand. It's a sun on my ankle, and then there's waves. And then there's a little moon. And to me, it represents the sunshine that I've been talking about. But then the moon more represents the deep emotions and the connectedness to self and the hard times and the flow between the two, because I really do think that they're both important. So I went out searching for my sunshine, and I feel like I found it again, but I also rediscovered this part of me and gave credit to and appreciated this part of me that isn't always happy and excited and sunny. I talked about this in the beginning of the episode, but another huge growth point I've had during this is realizing how much of a difference it makes when your thoughts, your words, and your actions all line up. It just unblocks everything for you, because you're just sending yourself in a direction to go exactly where you will be happy. Also, something else I've learned about, I am a huge advocate for solo travel. I know that it's not for everybody, but I feel like everybody should try it at some point, because you can get to know yourself so well when you're in a circumstance, when you are in a situation when nobody else knows you. Here's the thing. I've talked about this in a previous episode with my friend Bella. It's a wonderful episode, so go listen to it. When you're home and you are surrounded by your community, there are trends. There's social constructs, there's ways you should act, ways you should dress, ways you should talk. I'm saying should with air quotations because, there's no shoulds here really. And we tend to fall into these, especially women. There's actually been studies that a woman or a girl can have a tick. It can be a mannerism or a trend or something like that. And then the other girls around it can basically catch that tick. And then you start acting more similarly, because we're all our own people, right? But more similarly to the people around you. And you can fall into these trends. You can start feeling like you need to dress this certain way, speak this certain way. But when you are traveling alone, there's nothing for you to really hold on to. There's nothing for you to fall into, because you're surrounded by people from all over the world who speak differently, who dress differently, who act differently. And you're seeing all of these different ways. You're hearing about all these different ways of living. You're hearing all these different ways of speaking, all these different ways of acting. And suddenly you have the freedom to just be whoever you want and whoever you are. Of course, sometimes it does happen with individuals. That can happen too. There are times where I see a girl and I'm like, oh, I should dress more like her. I should wear my hair like her. I try not to, but it does. I do it sometimes. But generally, when you're solo traveling, you're making the decisions. There's no one else there to make decisions for you. You have to decide where you're going. You have to decide what you're doing that day. You have to decide what to eat. What do you like? What do you want to do? How do you feel when you are in the unfamiliar? How do you handle difficult situations? How do you handle feeling lonely? How do you go about socializing with other people? What kind of people do you want to surround yourself with? What kinds of people make you feel good? These are all things that you learn when you solo travel. These are things that I have learned through solo travel. And beyond that, beyond self-discovery, discovery of the world. Do you know how humbling it can be to travel? Do you know how much we don't know. Do you know how ignorant we can be? That's something else that you can learn from solo travel. You travel and you learn about all of these different cultures, all of these different ways of doing things. If you want to listen to, I think 2 episodes ago, my episode with my friend Matt, he told us about how he went to teach English in Korea and he was going to have students from ages 4 to graduation. Well, in Korea at the time when he was there, they did the years different. So he was thinking he was going to have 4-year-olds. Well, he has 2-year-olds in the international system. So he has kids still in diapers and still learning to speak at all. Oh my gosh, huge mind opener. You learn these things and it's just like, I don't know anything. You realize how much you really don't know, and your mind just expands and expands and expands. And every time something like that happens, every time you enter a new country, every time you hear a new language, every time you meet somebody new, your mind is expanding and you are learning and growing. And this is the kind of education and self-development that you just don't get elsewhere. If you're listening to this and you want to travel, I'm going to tell you right now, just do it. Just book the ticket. You'll figure it out. You just gotta do it. You'll be fine. Even if it's a hard experience, I have had some gnarly experiences traveling. I have had some difficult things happen, but these are experiences that I have never regretted. I have not regretted one of these experiences. They're all growth experiences. You can learn something from them all. The difficult experiences, I think, are actually some of the ones I come out of feeling the most fulfilled and the most powerful. Each one of them has helped me grow and each one of them has helped me reach another level. Even the freaking difficult ones. I'm also gonna say, if you are someone who doesn't really want to travel, I'm gonna say try it out anyways, because you might know maybe you're gonna love it. And I think it's so important to do, because we pick these things up. And okay, I'm gonna check myself right now and say that I understand not everybody can travel. I feel really privileged to be having this conversation right now and say, just go travel. I know that not everybody can, but so many people can and they don't. And that's one of the things, is realizing that travel is such a privilege. So to just never even try it, like, come on, like just give it a try. Especially, I know this is true for a lot of countries, but just being American, I can speak on that. My currency is strong, my passport is strong, the wages are good, sets me up to travel. I have so much privilege, and I think that's a big reason why it's important to travel, to be able to realize that. And then also, as we grow up and as we go through our lives, we are conditioned to believe certain things. So we might pick things up even subconsciously. We might have subconscious beliefs, implicit biases that we're not even aware are there. You hear people talking about things, you see people act a certain way, you pick up on body language as a kid, and you kind of start to build on these beliefs. And then you travel, and it is such an interesting way, such a good way, I think, to kind of unravel these and kind of undo these things, because you realize that a lot of what you believed is just made up. I think I've said this before. I said this in my episode with Matt. This is awful, like so ignorant of me, but as a kid, I was taught in school that basically the United States is the only true free country. So I pictured other countries as basically the Hunger Games. I thought that's what it was like. And then I started traveling. And of course, by the time I started traveling, I knew that wasn't true, or I wouldn't have gone to Mexico, you know. But I think subconsciously the thought was still kind of there. And then it took me traveling to kind of unravel that and be like, this is so stupid. The United States of America is not superior to any country, and in fact there's a lot of countries that I like more than the United States of America. But just taking the time to travel, unwinding those beliefs, you know, they can even be picked up from reading a book, watching TV, listening to music. It's all just like layered on top of there, and it takes work to unlayer that. And so much of what you thought life had to look like isn't real. It's not true. So much of what you should do, you don't need to do. I think it's really important to get out of your bubble and see other things. So I'm gonna say, if you not really interested in travel, maybe you should think twice and give it a try anyways. If you are someone who is already a traveler, I'm so happy you're here and so happy to connect with you. I hope that you can relate to some of these things. I am going to wrap it up here and say thank you so much for listening to this podcast. This really is a passion project for me. I'm 22 years old and I feel like I have been so inspired by others. I have been so lucky to be living my dream life. I have created something that I'm so proud of, and I'm really excited to connect with you, to share these things with you and inspire you, hopefully, to do the things that you want to do. What do you want and how do you get there? That is the journey that I hope I can support you in, even just a little bit. If you enjoyed the episode, please follow me, find me on Instagram at the Wandering Wild Podcast, leave a review, a comment, engage with my content, whatever. I'd really appreciate it. Also, if you have any questions or there's any topics you want me to touch on, please reach out. I love chatting and I love connecting with people who are interested in the same things that I am. I just started doing these episodes weekly, which I'm really excited about and really looking forward to. So yeah, I will leave you there. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next week.